actually understand him as being a giant serpent that lives in space, connected to time somehow, and also biting his own tail. And this is the breakdown of the composite word Leviathan, and it actually means the serpent that's connected. Eliphas Levi actually did his homework, drew this picture so that we don't have to understand Hebrew. Even modern Jewish postcards actually show Leviathan in its correct form. And you can see the word under here again, Leviathan. But instead of a snake, they have a fish. I think that's a carp. This is an Aztec form of Leviathan. Chinese. This is on the Masonic gravestone. This is Leviathan. This is the center of the Milky Way. This is his body and his head going this direction, his eye, and his tail going into his mouth here. This is a little simplified, more resolved version of Leviathan eating his tail at the galactic central point. It's interesting that even Poseidon was known as a serpent that ate his tail, and he was first known as Okeanos. And I looked all over for an etymological origin for the word Poseidon, and I got all sorts of things like great father or ocean god, which doesn't make much sense. But one really good explanation is that it's a sentence in Greek, aposeidon, which means from Sidon. So it's actually this idea of understanding how heaven and earth relate, how heaven and earth actually interact, so that heaven has a gigantic chronometer that can actually predict where we are in the ages. So this idea of a circumscribed pentagram is extremely old, and it's actually an equation that will demonstrate how earth and heaven are aligned. 360 degrees of the circle around the pentagram actually create an equation, because in a regular pentagram or pentagon, you have 72 degrees between each of the 5 points. By multiplying it, you get 25,920 years, which is exactly what Plato said was the Platonic year, the year that took for the earth to make one circuit of the precession of the equinoxes. Many people don't understand what the precession is. It's pretty simple. The earth revolves around its axis. It also goes around the sun. But because it's at an angle, it has obliquity, we have seasons. So as it travels around the sun once in 365 days, the northern hemisphere here will get more sun during our summer, and the southern hemisphere gets more during summer down in Australia where we get winter. But what also is happening is this axis spins like a wobbly top, but it doesn't spin very fast. In fact, it takes 72 years to move just 1 degree. And so it points at these north stars, as these stars actually trade off being the North Pole over 25,920 years. But also while that's happening, when we have spring, the beginning of our year, during the vernal equinox, we move along the zodiac. And it will take 25,920 years to move one time. This is supposedly the Ring of Solomon, and I put it up because it has 4 fins on it. Here is the Ouroboros. This is another word for the Leviathan. Ouroboros, the tail-eating serpent of the Greek, but he has 4 fins. And the reason that he has 4 fins, according to the Jewish sages, is because he supports the cosmos on it. It makes sense because there are actually 4 points to the ecliptic. You have in Leo Regulus, the brightest star, in that quadrant, Omaha and Aquarius. In Taurus, the Bull, Aldebaran, Antares, and Scorpio. All these 4 points are aligned equally across the ecliptic. And they are part of another mystical symbol. if you combine their points together, you actually get a composite being with 4 faces. It's the origin for the type of the cherubim that Ezekiel was talking about. And so the Greeks understood that there were points during the during the Platonic year that we would actually align ourselves with them. They called the spaces between each of these cherubic points aeons, and they called the points between exactly right before we moved into the next aeon the dividing point, the word syntelia. When the Israelites were in the desert, they would align themselves around the camp, and they each had ensigns or flags with them. And these flags actually coordinate to the zodiac. This is an important picture because you have Leviathan here. And as the precession of the equinox worked through the Platonic year, Leviathan will appear right before the cherubic point, the lion. And here, this is part of a corrupted symbol. It used to be Ophiuchus, the serpent holder. He's stepping on the scorpion, so the Greeks have it just kind of abbreviated. Here's the man, and here's the bull. But every time we move from here to here to here, it would take 6,480 years, a little over 6,000 years, every time. And that's the length of an aeon. And every time we do that, there would be a sign that would show that we move into the aeon. At a vernal equinox, or at a solstice, or at the autumnal equinox, or anytime we'd have an equinox or solstice, this could be seen during that point between the aeons. The sun will rise exactly in the mouth of this snake, this Leviathan, and it will herald the new aeon that lasts 6,000 plus years. And the strange thing about that is the eclipse that just happens when we sight the sun just happens to go right through the mouth. This sign actually lasts for about 900 years. It actually lasts long enough that you can get a really good idea of just about where it occurred. I left it at 2012 because there's so much lore around the idea of the Aztec calendar ending there, but just as a benchmark, if you move back 6,480 years to get this symbol at either a solstice or an equinox, you end up at birth of written history. And if you go back another 6,000 years plus, you end up at a place where the geologic time, Pleistocene, and then the Holocene begins. And those are marked by massive die-offs. The geologist will mark a new epoch by how much dead things he finds in the strata. That marks a huge die-off of most of the animals in the North American continent. And you can continue backwards along these aeons. You can actually mark where they occur. We're moving into the age of Aquarius now. That would be in the spring. We'd actually see the sunrise in right about where Aquarius is, the first degree. But Taurus was there before. And interesting, Grant Hancock and Duval talk about the pyramid being aligned so that it would be looking at this age, the age of Leo. And they say that there was a great cataclysm there. It's my take that that's the time of the flood and the rebuilding of civilization. You go back 6,000 years before that, glaciers were at a maximum. And interestingly, at the beginning of the whole Platonic year itself, it said that all hominids except Homo sapiens had died out.